Don't you give me a countdown. Hello and welcome to Ranking 76, where we review and rank the heroes and villains of the American West. I'm Eric.
And I'm M-A-T-T, Matt.
Where did that come from?
I don't know. Last second thought I just had, I'm like, I'm going to try it, see if it landed. Don't think it's going to land, so.
I mean, if
Might
by
have
land
to-
you mean crash and burn, yeah, it landed.
No
Born in-
survivors.
Born in Minnesota, basically grew up in South Dakota, moved to Georgia, and 12 other different places, and you thought you could break out a rap at the beginning of an American West podcast.
The American West.
Not since Will Smith, Wild Wild West, has anyone ever attempted that. 4 reasons.
Hey, I like that song was way better than the movie.
It was very catchy. I don't hate the song, but it's also been 2 decades since I've heard it, so who knows what I think about it anymore.
Wiki, 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 wild, wild west. James West, Desperado, Rough Rider. No, you don't stop, nada. That's all I know.
Wow.
We're going straight. Wasn't Cisco in that too? The guy that sang
Probably.
the thong
Cisco
song. I'm pretty sure.
Cisco was in everything for a while, it felt like.
Yeah.
So Cochise Part 2. Didn't picture the episode starting this way.
With the Cisco reference, Will Smith Cisco reference?
And a Cisco reference. With, a rap. It's cool. I dig it. Is that what kids are still saying? They dig it?
It's lit.
It's lit. There you go. It slaps. There was a discussion on the Discord group. It was a bunch of 30-year-olds trying to be cool anymore. Anyway, we should probably get back to Cochise. We last left Cochise at the end of the Cut the Tent incident, or the Bascom Affair. The Bascom Affair, if you haven't listened to the previous episode, was a young boy named Felix was kidnapped. And it was suspected that Cochise's band was the one that did it. Well, it turns out Cochise didn't have the boy, and the man who was leading the meeting didn't believe him. So instead of allowing Cochise to go find the boy, he said, nope, you're arrested. So Cochise literally cut himself out of the tent he was sitting in, and then ensued a couple-week standoff, because inside of the camp with Bascom was Cochise's young son named Nightshade and his wife, along with a few cousins and uncles, things like that. Cochise then maybe takes a couple civilians captive. Maybe it was their fault. He also then finds some soldiers that were going out for water, the same thing. And after a couple weeks standoff, the soldiers end up dead, as well as some of Cochise's family members.
It's weird that back then it's like, oh, okay, you kill a couple of my people, I'm going to kill a couple of yours.
It's very dog eat dog. It's not pleasant.
And then up until this point, they were probably like, Cochise ain't going to do beep.
Well, if they did, they did not know anything about the Apache, because we spent the entire last episode talking about how angry the Apache could get. And Cochise, I don't think I would call him peaceful, but he didn't have a vendetta until now. Now he has quite a big one, so that's going to be fun to deal with.
Well, didn't they? I can't remember, so remind me. Didn't they at one point want peace?
Not really at this point. I mean, yes, there had been some overtures, but I mean, it's been a lot of attacks.
Because no, what I'm thinking of is like the Mexicans would always make deals with them,
right? And then they would
to
go
stop fighting.
Country. Yeah,
yeah. Until they made a deal with them, and then they would go back, right?
Yeah. It's fun little game that the Apaches were playing with the Mexicans.
You pay us, we'll stop. But if you pay us, we'll stop, because then we'll just go attack them.
Yeah, kind of was, yeah. So we are in April 1861. Same year, same month that the Civil War starts out back east, which is just perfect time for Cochise and his vendetta to start. Not that he had anything to do with the Civil War, obviously, but it's not perfect time because Cochise is about to attack everything. And the U.S. may or may not have burned some of their forts to the ground to go assist the forces back east. So if you are a miner or a rancher, you now have significantly less protection than you did just a little bit ago. What's the worst that could happen, you ask? Well, the Apaches start attacking anything that has a pulse. They start with a wagon train with about 100 warriors. The wagon train itself only has about 9 people. 7 are killed in the firefight, but there are 2 survivors initially. And I say initially because when they attempted to raise a white flag of truce, the Apaches took them, tied them upside down, and then lit a small fire underneath their heads, which obviously killed them eventually.
So they were slow roasted.
Yes. And when they were found, there was also evidence that they were stabbed with lances. So I don't know if that happened post-mortem. Don't know if that happened during.
If that was a pre or post.
Yeah, that's nasty is what it is.
Jeez. They weren't messing around. Like, even though they gave them a white flag, though.
The Apache don't care about your flags.
Yeah, we don't care.
A rancher who apparently had an incredibly large herd lost 400 cattle on a raid by Cochise. Another rancher claimed to lose his entire herd. Bascom, who is, again, still in the area for a little bit, is actually one of the few that can bring Cochise out into a raid. Those 2 have a little bit of a standoff and a fight, but it kind of ends up in a draw. And then Bascom also has to leave, and he's actually going to exit the picture completely because he's going to be killed in the Battle of Valverde in 1862. So Bascom, he's out.
Bascom's dead.
Yeah, he's gone. He's dead like a year later, and he's not in the rest of the story. So he just kind of wiped his hands clean of Cochise and
then went and died.
And then went and died. So that's fun for him. Throughout the rest of 1861, approximately 100 civilians are killed in Arizona alone. Near Santa Fe, a woman and a child were found murdered, and the child's body was even tied up to a cart as if it was on display, which is a new level of
low.
New low, new height, I guess. New height of violence.
Is this something they would always do, though? Like, is this not something new? Like, would they kill?
They've definitely done
women and children.
Yeah, I mean, it just happened to be Mexican citizens, and now it's just American citizens.
So yeah, like this isn't anything new to anyone that's known the Apaches,
right?
Okay.
So after they would raid a ranch or burn it to the ground, they would take everything else because if you remember, they also do not farm, so they need to raid in general. But now it's just a new level of violence. Now, I said that 100 civilians were killed in 1862 alone. That itself may not seem like a huge number, but between April and the rest of the year, most of the casualties per raid is between 3 and 7. So imagine 3 times a month you hear another raid has happened and another 3 to 5 people are dead. That's going to take a rack up on the brain. In fact, one Arizona newspaper actually said, quote, "Our prosperity has departed. The mail is withdrawn. The soldiers are gone and their garrisons burned to the ground. The miners are murdered and the mines abandoned. The stock risers and farmers have abandoned their crop and herds to the Indians, and the population generally have fled. Panic struck in the naked search of refuge. From end to end, the territory is empty." You could argue that the Apache now just control the area. And I don't even think there's a counter argument to it. They are in charge. No one else is there.
Okay, so is there still any type of like American forces present?
Not yet, but this is where it gets a little bit more complex because we're just about to introduce Oh, we're not even going to introduce them. You have the Civil War actually starts coming back out west into Arizona and New Mexico. So you now have American soldiers that divide that
Coming
into
in to fight
Confederate.
other American soldiers.
Yeah. So,
Do you think the Apaches looked around like, wait, what?
oh, I think they probably just at some points they probably just like folded their arms. Like, oh, this is great. You're killing each other. Great. You're saving us.
We
So
don't have
much
to do
energy.
anything, right?
No, actually, if you just pull the blade back just a little bit, you can just get a little bit deeper, like they're giving.
They're giving them tips.
Now, for the sake of trying to keep things separate, I am going to do a U.S. history and Civil War sin. I am not going to differentiate between Confederate and Union sources.
You monster.
I know. Forgive me. I will. This is my bear to cross. I'm very sorry.
Cross the bear.
I did cross the bear. That's not how that phrase goes. Is it? I broke the phrase.
He's crossing a bear right now. Ah!
You do cross
You're so flabbergasted with what you just said that you're crossing a bear.
I'm so disgusted with myself. We do cross a lot of bears in this podcast, so maybe that should just be our motto. I'm gonna spin this so I still sound smart. The little iota that I have. So just as soldiers are entering back into the area, there is specifically one place that they need to control. And we touched on it last episode, but not really in brief. Apache Pass is really the only and the most convenient place to get anything through. Wagon supplies, mail, you name it. It is the best way to get through. They need to control that. Both the Union and the Confederates both want it, and the Apache control it. Now, orders to deal with the Apache are kind of different. You have Colonel Robert Baylor's orders are to receive any Apache, even if they're under peace, and exterminate them. Just don't even deal with peace. Kill them all. Take it. Lieutenant Colonel Kyle Edward Eyre is told to just avoid the Apache, but take control of the pass, which I would like to think Eyre was like, really? You just think we can just walk up and just take control? Okay, great. But I guess it'll work. You do you, bud. I'll see what I can do.
You do you, boo-boo.
Boo-boo, yes. With a little kiss on the letter. So Eyre does follow his commands, and he sends out a message to talk peace. And the letter gets to Cochise. And Eyre is shocked that Cochise actually shows up to talk peace. And in fact, during the gift giving and during the talks, things are going really well. And Eyre already patting himself on the back. See, this is really easy. Maybe these Apache ain't so bad. And also, why is he laughing like the guy from Home Alone?
Because he thinks he's got him.
Oh, he sure does. Now, unfortunately for Eyre, shortly after the meeting, they may have found the body of 3 soldiers. So that's not great. So then when Eyre goes to chase Cochise down, they can actually see not only are they laughing at Eyre and his men, they may have also taken some horses while they were there too.
And, killed a couple of them.
Yeah. Complete embarrassment is what it was. It was an absolute farce from the beginning. Why you would accept this man this close, I do not understand. But Eyre, he tried, he followed orders, and it backfired on him real bad.
Do you think that was kind of ballsy of Cochise, though? Because, he went in there. How did he know they weren't going to do the same thing?
Well, if he was, it is a risk, but you would think if you're Cochise and you have had control of this area for over a year, there's probably a bit of arrogance and also like, okay, try it. And we have our own plan. So I'm assuming, and also you saw at the Bascom Affair, the cut the tent, he'll make his own escape plan.
So is there maybe I'm getting ahead of myself here. Is there a number 2, like Cochise, and then does he have someone that is just like him, or how does that work? Send me your leader, and then the leader strolls on in, like nowadays it's like send me your leader and like all the other like people below you send like
Mhm.
to figure that out and then come back and tell me what they said.
I mean, like all native bands or most native bands, there's no universal leader. Cochise has the most influence and he has the most people running after him. So therefore, he's viewed as the leader of the Chiricahua Apaches. It's no different than like when we're talking about the Sioux and Red Cloud. There are multiple bands of the Apache that we haven't even talked about. Like, for example, Victorio leads the Ojo Caliente band. Well, they will partner up with Cochise in just a little bit here. Now, does that mean that Victorio is number 2? Not really. He leads his own bands and he's working with Cochise. Cochise might be leading the battle plan, but
I just didn't know if like because like every bad guy in a story has like an underling right under him, the number 2.
right.
So I don't know if there was a guy that was always by his side that was like the guy, the guy that everyone is like, if Cochise isn't there, this guy is.
I mean, I guess who the closest I can think of is Mangus Coloradus, his father-in-law.
Okay.
But it's almost the opposite. It's not like the number 2. It's like Mangus is his mentor and also a very well-respected chief.
So he's kind of like advising. He's like a advisor.
Yeah, more than advisory. We'll talk about it in a bit, but yeah, he's definitely doing more than advising, but he's definitely there and giving advice. So now that peace talk with Cochise over Apache Pass have completely failed with Ire, it still doesn't fix the problem that the Apache control Apache Pass. So they need to fix that. Now, Cochise understands that the Americans want Apache Pass, and he just leaves his scouts out to look for them. Now, he sees the Americans possibly as early as the San Pedro River in July 1862, but he doesn't directly attack there. In fact, he's going to let them continue up until they can take the high ground and hide. And that place is where they strategize is called Dragoon Springs. Once the Americans get to Dragoon Springs, the Apache launch their attack. Now they have the high ground, so you have to picture all of the Americans kind of in like this little bowl and this valley, right?
And they're running up towards Cochise.
So the soldiers are basically going to be pinned down, is what's going to happen.
I mean, you can't. Yeah, I guess you can't run uphill. You're just dead.
And there's trees and like so it's very hard to gauge where they actually at. Now Cochise has about 200 warriors, and from what I can tell, there's about 150 to let's say 175 men in the American Legion, whatever. I don't know the exact termination. I didn't write it down, but there's about 150 to 175 Americans that they're battling, so it's a pretty even fight. But the Apache,
they're on high ground.
They're on high ground and they have the element of surprise. But it turns out the Apache, for all of their raiding, they're not the best at attacking American soldiers because they do and Matt, you probably know this better than I would, but what is one thing they train you when you're shooting down at an opponent?
Oh, you gotta, I would aim a little bit up. Or no, down. Yes. Reverse down it. You'd aim a little bit lower.
You'd aim much lower because if you are inexperienced, you are likely going to over.
Do they have rifles?
Rifles, bows, pistols, they have it.
I mean, because I was gonna say if it was just bows, like you definitely want to aim lower though, because those things are gonna be sailing.
Yep. The Apache are shooting, but hardly ever missing a target. So of the 200 that are suddenly launching their attack, there's only about 1 casualty and 2 other wounded. Or so 1 death and 2 wounded in the
out of everything
out of the opening volley.
Oh my
Not God. Exactly the sudden attack that you would like. You would like something a little bit more than that for your surprise attack, right?
Surprise! What? What's the surprise?
Right. This is unpleasant. This is
this is unpleasant.
Just duck, boys. Like, this is not that hard. I don't know. Are we in real danger? Keep filling up the canteens. Not exactly the reaction the Apache want. However, the Apache also don't do a good job of like regrouping. So the Americans are able to actually come at them with bayonets, which forces them to flee. So overall, it's not great. However, It gets a little worse for the Apache. During the opening shots, Private John Teal had his horse shot out from under him. And as he's taking cover from behind his dead horse, Teal gets his sight on an Apache chief and pulls the trigger.
And kills him.
Well, he thinks he did, but he does hit the Apache, and the Apache flee towards the fallen chief and then take him away. John Teal had just shot Mangus Coloradus in the chest.
Oh no. His father-in-law.
Who's like 70 years old.
Who I literally just said, does he have a right-hand man?
Yeah, good segue, Matt. Again, I sometimes wonder if you look at my notes. We even said as much in the last couple of episodes, but what a great segue you gave me. I was so happy.
So he got shot in the chest. So I'm assuming he didn't make it.
This is Mangus Coloradus. He does make it. Now he's hurting. He's out for a while.
So he makes it out of the battle alive, or he makes it.
Mangus survives.
Okay.
Yeah, Mangus is still alive. Now,
and he gets healed and everything.
Yes, he does.
Holy crap.
A tough old bird, that Mangus. Do you
In the
remember what his
chest.
name means? Do you remember what his name means?
No.
He was the one that they didn't know if it was because he wore a red shirt or if his shirt was stained with the blood of his enemies.
Right. Yep, that's right. I remember that now.
Yes. You don't mess with. He's also like 6'4", 250. Probably does the tombstone pile driver. Just is a very, very big man, very scary. He's going to do what he wants to you. Imagine the morale blow to the Apache. Because losing this stand, the Americans can basically just walk into Apache Pass and take it. And
so it's theirs now.
It's now in possession of the Americans. And they just lost Mangus for a while.
I wonder what Cochise was thinking. You know, when he sees Mangus freaking coming out with a freaking like go down, you know.
I mean, he's thinking, because there is a definite switch in Cochise at this point, because he realizes even with 200, he cannot stand up to the Americans on a real fight. So now he has to explicitly just do raids, because he can't, like, if this was his shot to do it, if he was going to take them out, this would have been about the size of Custer's last stand. A little bit smaller, but.
So you think if Mangus Coloradus wouldn't have went down, do you think, and the Apache won that fight, it would have been something completely different outcome?
No. I mean, I think you saw from the opening volley that the Apache were not ready for
what ended up happening.
Like, I think what we've seen in this podcast is the Apache and like the Sioux, the Shant, whoever it is, they don't do well in one-on-one fighting. They have to small parties, attack quickly, and leave.
Right.
Their form of victory is going on a raid. So essentially you go in, inflict your damage, and then come back. You're not, and then like the American version of victory is hold the ground. If you hold the ground, we win. And that's not the best way for Native Americans to win a fight. Inflict, go home. Come back, inflict, go home. So again, Cochise now realizes he has to go back to small raids. He can't continue to fight the Americans one-on-one. Mangus, on the other hand, definitely has some time to think. And he's thinking, I'm an old man. I do not want to fight anymore. I have been fighting.
You know, I bet that shot to the chest really hurt.
Yeah.
And he was probably like, yeah, I don't want to do this anymore.
Yeah. I mean, quite frankly, I'm too old for this. Like, that's it. Can't do it anymore. So Mangus kind of takes a step back from the raiding. Cochise is still raiding. He really kind of uses this time to regroup, and he raids in Mexico because, again, raiding in Mexico is just what they do in their off time. But Mangus is looking for peace talks, and he even starts making overtures to the Americans. Now, unbeknownst to Mangus, the standing orders for any Apache that wants peace is to just kill them. That is now the standing orders for both
I wonder if
Confederate
that's
and
because of
Union.
what Cochise did.
You know, I might be related. It just might be.
Hey,
But
remember that
Mangus
time
doesn't
we
know that.
invited you to freaking and you kill people and stole a bunch of our horses? Yeah.
Yeah, that's going to come back to you. Yeah, sure is. When Mangus sends out his letters, he does so, and they reach the desk of two men. One is named West, and the other is named Swilling. And they get those letters by the end of 1862. Both of them are very, very happy to accept Mangus into camp to talk. They would love to talk with Mangus. Wouldn't it be great as they're evilly petting their cats?
Are they
Twisting
both on the
mustaches.
same page though?
They're both, yes.
Like they
Yeah, they're the
both
same.
want to talk. Like
Yes,
none of them actually want to talk.
correct. Because the standing orders come from a man named Carlton, and I'm trying to decide if Carlton's going to get his own episode. He probably will, but Carlton is more or less dealing with the Comanches at this point, and we haven't even touched on the Comanches yet, so I don't want to open up that bag of words. But Carlton himself is a prick, but he's also a really efficient prick. And his standing orders to West and Swilling are to kill on command. So anyway, back to Mangus. Mangus and Swilling and West exchange letters until the end of 1862. And when Mangus finally steps foot in camp, West and Swilling immediately arrest him. Now, for any soldier that was in the camp, Swilling makes it very obvious because he gives a speech in front of everyone. Oh, I'm sorry. It's West that actually gives the speech, not Swilling. Either way, it doesn't matter. West gets up in front of the men and says, "Men," he says, quote, "men, that old murderer has gotten away from every soldier command and left a trail of blood 500 miles from the top of the old stage line. I want him dead or alive tomorrow morning." He would then continue to then say, quote, "Do you understand? I want him dead."
You understand? Dead.
Just in case. Forget that alive part I just said. Just dead. Get it over with. How old is Mangus?
70, 71 at this point,
Yeah,
72.
real threat. He's a big threat, that 70-year-old man. Now, they take Mangus in captivity and place him under the guard of two men. They order him to the ground and they give him one blanket to sleep. And keep in mind, it's January.
So he's probably freezing.
Oh, but don't worry, they're keeping him warm. Do you want to know how they're keeping him warm? They may be putting their bayonets in the fire and then they press it up against his leg.
Oh, man. Open torture, huh?
Yeah. Now, as soon as Mangus, who it sounds like he was just kind of taking it, once he has enough, he raises himself up to one elbow. He's laying on his stomach. He raises up to one elbow. And at that instant, they shoot him dead.
So is he just like, hey, boom?
Yes. As soon as he gets up to protest, that was it. That was all they needed. Now, in the official documents, they would say that he tried to escape 3 times that night.
I wonder why. Could it have been because, he was getting burned?
Yeah. Obviously they leave that part out, but like, how fast is he going? Like, I picture
He's 70, 71 years old, like getting up, just bones cracking. I mean, dude was shot in the chest not too long before that.
That man is a beast. Like, I want to give him his own episode, but I don't know what else we would cover that we haven't covered in these last 2 episodes.
And we just did talk about his death, so
We did, yes. That wouldn't be a surprise how he died, but it just sounded like he was like the Hulk before the Hulk. Like, he was very impressive, man. So now Cochise has a new vendetta because now his father-in-law has been killed.
how did he hear about it? Don't tell me they strung him up or whatever, or did he just get like word?
Actually, I mean, it ends up being maybe don't quote me on this because I'm trying to pull back in my brain what actually they do with Mangus. I think they actually use his head or his brain as like a science project. Like, like they remove the brain and the head and they put it on display.
Yeah.
And
Or put it in a
I
big
think
tub of water or something.
it kind of like that. I believe that's been lost, but they believe it's at the Smithsonian somewhere. I
What?
really have to look that up.
His
I will
brain.
put I will put a link up once I actually find where I had that, but if I remember right, they think it's in the Smithsonian somewhere. Like his brain or his head is somewhere.
Where did I put that brain? I
Yeah,
know it's got to be around here somewhere.
which is also it forgets a rather disturbing question about the Smithsonian.
Yeah, like
If you lose a brain, that implies you have multiple that you're able to lose. How many do you have in there? But yes, I think that's what happens with Magnus. If anyone knows the actual story before I put the link up, please just leave it in the comments. We'll put it on the show. And I would, go from there. Anyway, back to Cochise. Within weeks, that Mangus is murdered. Apache scouts start scouting the fort that he was killed at, which is called Fort Bowie. It is at Apache Pass. I did fail to mention that. Mere weeks after Mangus is murdered, the raids start. So it is now March 1863, and with a frustrating lack of detail, however, I don't know how much I would be able to say otherwise, the raids do not stop for 2 years, and they continue through 1865.
so he's just going full on. We're not stopping until they're dead or gone or whatever.
It is constant attacks, raid after raid after raid after raid until you want to throw up.
Are people dying?
You dang right they are.
On both sides or just
Not necessarily on the Apache. There are on the Apache because you also have you do have the US soldiers trying to find them. They're failing for the most part, but a blind squirrel finds a nut once in a while. You take out some of them and go on. But I mean, like that stat that I quoted earlier, that 3 to 7, just imagine every time there's a raid, 3 to 7 people
3
die.
to 7, 3 to 7. And this is nonstop for, you said, 2 years?
2 years, but I mean, really throughout the rest of the decade. Now,
Good God.
it's not all the Chiricahua, which is Cochise's band. And it's not all in the United States because again, once the Apache needs supplies, their Walmart is Mexico, and they will just keep raiding the Mexicans because they think it's very easy to do, and apparently it was.
And apparently it is easy.
Yeah. For now.
Is Cochise getting stronger and stronger as well as the years go on, or is it about the same?
It's difficult to tell because we're not too far, not to spoil anything, we're not too far off where Cochise is starting to think of peace. Starting to. He's
even starting to be like, I think it's time we hang it up.
He's flirting with the idea. Now he's still like 90%, I'm going to kill everyone. But he has to start thinking about it. Now that can be a sign of he has to take care of families that are in his band. That could be a sign of he doesn't have warriors to fight. It could also be he has also been fighting for an incredible amount of time. He's not a spring chicken anymore because if you remember, he may have been born around 1810. We're now approaching 1870.
So he's like in his late 50s, early 60s. Yeah. And I don't care if you keep winning. Fighting gets old.
Yes, it does. I don't know it because I've been into not very many fights in my life. And even those, I think they're more tussles than fights. But yeah, I mean, there's some signs. There's some cracks in the Cochise army. At least
that's rumored, though. That's rumored, though. You said.
Yeah. I mean, you can make educated guesses. It's very plausible.
Okay.
Yes. Now that's just the Chiricahua. You still have the Badonkai, you still have the Ojo Caliente, you have Victoria, which, by the way, we're not talking about Victoria a whole lot. Victoria could also get his own episode if I haven't mentioned him yet this episode. There's so much going on. And also, we're still in the 1860s. We haven't approached Tombstone yet. We've been in this area the entire time, haven't had to mention Doc Holliday or Wyatt Earp. All of that is still happening in a couple years, by the way. 15 to be exact. Yeah.
Things are happening in the that area, huh?
The American Southwest is nuts. It's insane. Every time I look around a corner, there's a new, like, incredible story to go dive into. And then, like, 6 hours later, I'm like, oh crap, I'm still covering Cochise. And that, yeah, it's unbelievable how much there is. But anyway, more to come on that because we're going to be in Arizona for a bit. So you know how we just talked about the Apache's Walmart was Mexico?
Yes.
Well,
and you said for now.
Yeah, well, it turns out Mexico, they're doing a little better than they were when they were just a startup country. Like, they're no longer worried about what's happening in Mexico City. You have the two Mexican states, Sonora and Chihuahua. For whatever reason, they had never thought to, like, coordinate their peace talks with the Apache. So, like we had just been joking about, once they would make a deal with Sonora, they would go raid Chihuahua, and then vice versa. Well, somebody had to think and thought, maybe let's not do that. Huh? So now Sonora and Chihuahua are banding together and hunting the Apache together. So Cochise now has the Americans angry at him. And now the Mexicans are actually kind of a threat. They're a little bit harder to deal with than they were before.
And for anyone that knows anything about war, a two-front attack is so hard to fight against.
It's great, isn't it?
When you have to fight two fronts, you're like, oh crap, I have to thin out everything. Yay, this is so much fun.
Yeah. So, I mean, and just to give you an idea of the attitude that the Mexicans are having, they would call peace with the Apaches, quote, a utopia and an unrealistic project. So there's not much to negotiate there.
They don't think there's ever going to be peace then?
No. No, they do
not.
I
mean, to be fair, Cochise kind of brought that on himself a little bit.
Yeah. I think this is going to be the fun debate that we have at the end of this episode, because there's a lot to unpack here, as we would say at every cheesy corporate conference.
Yeah. Let's go ahead and start unpacking.
It's a large suitcase. Now, the Americans, you might say, are the Americans starting to soften up on their thoughts on the Apache? Well, the Americans, specifically West, West, the man that just said, I want Mangus dead. Do you understand me? Yeah. He would say something like, quote, I do not look forward to any peace with them except for what they must command. They must have no voice in the matter. The entire subjugation or destruction of the men are the alternatives.
So, yeah, he hates them. Yeah. He doesn't want anything to do with them. He wants them dead.
Dead. So,
that's too bad.
Again, your two-front scenario is a very real thing for Cochise at this time.
Well, no one wants peace.
Now, what the Apaches have going for them, and I've barely touched on this, is nobody can actually find them. They're very good at going at incredibly long distances and then covering up their trails. So it's all fun and games to say you're going to find the Apache, but they haven't been able to do it. And if you remember, the Mexicans, and even going back to the Spanish Empire, they had been trying to do it since the 1700s, and it is now 1865 to 1867-ish. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they can't. So they just can't find them.
No, they can't. So that's the one thing that the Apache have going for them. But Cochise understands things need to change very quickly
if they want to survive.
Yes. By October 1865, after numerous overtures by the Americans, Cochise just shows up to an American camp wanting to talk peace. Yeah. His presence is so out of the blue Now they had been, talking ish, but like if you were talking to Cochise, would you really believe him? Like, yeah, he wants to talk peace. How about Ire? Do you want to talk about how he last talked with peace with you when he killed 3 of your men and took your horses?
Right.
I'm not believing him. So when he just shows up out of the blue, the man in charge of the camp was so dumbfounded, he didn't know if he had the authority to accept him.
Wait. No, go back up, back up, back up.
I'm just the cook. I'm just
Wait
the
here.
cook.
Wait here.
I don't know what to do. Please don't kill me. Now, what the man does is he tells Cochise, come back in 12 days and I'll get whoever is in charge to be here and we'll talk. Okay. Just please come back in 12 days. That sounds great. So Cochise leaves, but wouldn't you know it? In those 12 days, an army regiment found an Apache rancheria and raided it and killed 7 Chiricahuas. Now, if that wasn't bad enough, the army may have found stolen goods from murdered families as well as stolen army supplies. So that peace overture that Cochise just flirted with, that ain't
That ain't
happening
happening.
now. Now, Cochise biographer Edwin R. Sweeney is very quick to point out that there's likely no sustainable peace talks at this point because honestly, Cochise really hasn't been beaten. He just kind of knows things have changed. So for anything substantive to happen at this point, Sweeney doesn't believe it was going to happen anyway. So
Right.
maybe it was another ploy. Who really knows? Cochise is kind of a hard man to pin down. Even though there is no peace agreement, it is, we'll say, less chaotic throughout 1867, 1868, 1869, largely as Cochise tries to raid in Mexico, but again, that isn't going well anymore, and trying to maybe figure out a peace with the Americans. But again, nobody can actually find the Apache. Now, this is where I'm going to enter a new character,
Dun, 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 dun.
a new person to our story.
Player 3 entering the building.
His name, Player 3, is Tom Jeffords. Tom Jeffords is a former scout and a mail carrier. Now,
Nice.
yeah. Now, why are we bringing in the U.S. Postal Service? Well, it turns out Jeffords was in charge of a mail route, and over the last 16 months, he had lost like 14 mail carriers to Apache raids.
Jeez.
So he's a bit understaffed.
Those sons of mother. And if you're a manager currently in this time period, you know staffing issues suck.
And when a work hazard is possibly murdered by the Apache, people really don't want to sign up for your job.
He just passed background, damn it.
Well, now he's buried in the ground. So Jeffords, he's a man of ambition. So he just thinks, well, I'm just going to go talk to Cochise. And I'm sure the army was like, okay, listen to this guy. Okay, good job. Okay, Tom, you do whatever the hell you want. So Jeffords goes and he finds Cochise by himself.
That's so funny.
No one in the last half century has been able to track down this man, but a mail carrier is able to just go find him on a casual stroll, it seems like.
I'm sure because correct me if they changed it, but wasn't he allowing mail to come through the pass quite often?
He was until it got lost, and now
Oh, okay. Because I was gonna say they probably knew like the routes and I mean they probably knew the area really, really well.
Well, also keep in mind, just because Apache Pass is controlled by the Americans doesn't mean that the Apaches aren't trying to take it back once in a while.
It's not that
And
they're
if
still there.
the threat of, hey, look, a single person walking by himself, well, he's good as dead.
Right.
So yeah. So Jeffords just wants to go talk to Cochise. And he has like the most nonchalant way. Now, this is a direct quote from him from years later. This is Jeffords saying why he wanted to go find Cochise. And picture him with like a cigarette, smoking it all cool like. Quote, I made up my mind. I wanted to go see him. I had acquired a smattering of knowledge of the Indian language and went into his camp alone, fully armed. Dude just went into his camp with a gun and talked to Cochise.
What's up, Cochise? What you doing, bud?
Cochise is so impressed that the two actually start a friendship. And it actually is like Jeffords is like the first American or first like non-Apache he has trusted in probably his lifetime. So this is actually a really big moment. So thank you, postal carrier. You did it. Jeffords comes back, somehow not murdered, probably to the shock and everyone's jaw on the ground by the U.S. military. And is like, yeah, I just talked to him. Seems like a good guy. Not too far off. He's just like over the hill over there.
Hey, did you find him? Well, actually, yeah.
Yeah, I did. Oh, I left out the best detail. Tom Jeffords has flaming red hair and a flaming red beard.
That's awesome.
We found Jimmy.
Oh my God. What has he been doing? That's what he's been doing all these years.
This is post-Civil War. This is like 1869.
He is
Jimmy.
straight up said, I'm done.
I'm done with Custer and his bull spit, and I'm going to Arizona. And he talked to Cochise.
That is so funny.
Now, when Jeffords gets back into camp, kind of already alluded to this, when he tells everyone, like, yeah, I found him, what's the big deal? The U.S. military suddenly had pretty big interest in Tom Jeffords. And like, by the way, where did you find him? We would also like to have a chat, please. And Jeffords basically just shows them where he's at. And they have, and the U.S. Army, for the first time in ever, is in the Apache camp.
So he didn't move, like, Cochise didn't make any effort to move after he left or anything like that.
Not that I can tell. He just kind of stood there, which probably leads you to believe how bad it was in his camp.
Yeah.
He might not have had the ability to move. So when the U.S. Army pull up to the Apache camp, that had to have been alarming to everyone, probably but Cochise, because I'm assuming he had a pretty good heads up. But, I mean, from what I can tell, it was just kind of an unannounced thing because it's not like the military was, they were on talking terms with him.
Right.
So when Cochise finally meets with the Army, he has a fairly lengthy quote, but it's kind of worth covering. So I'm going to just try to go into it. Now, this is it's probably 2 or 3 paragraphs long. I only have about a paragraph of it. I kind of edited where I need to, so keep that in mind too. But we're going to pick up the speech when an officer named Perry states why he is here to see the chief. And Cochise interrupts him and says, "You mean to kill me or any of my tribe? That is what your visits mean to me. I tried the Americans once and they broke the treaty first. The officers, I mean. This was at the pass." Now he's talking about the Bascom Affair, if that isn't obvious to anyone.
Right.
If I stop in, he means if I'm going to stop in and talk peace to your reservations. If I stop in, I must be treated right. I don't expect they will treat us right. I won't stay for a good one. This is no place for Indians. They die after being there for a short time. I will go into a good one and talk to you after I hear how you will treat the Indians there. But even then, that's not going great because, again, the Americans have other things to deal with the Civil War, or at least they did back then. Cochise then went on to state that he lost many people, both through fighting and sickness that he is open and that he is also open to further talks. Now, in the meantime, he will send 2 scouts to check out the reservations, and he may come in 2 months if he is satisfied that he and the Chiricahuas would be treated properly. And you will be shocked to know
That they were treated properly?
no. You will be shocked to know that after that 2-month window, Cochise did not appear.
What? Where was he?
He just disappeared into the mountains again. Jimmy Jeffords couldn't find him, I guess. I don't know.
Dang it, Jimmy.
You found him once. Why can't you do it again? Now, with this brief, we'll call it flirtation with peace, Cochise has made his stance known. I'm willing to come in if you treat me right, but I don't think you're going to. He no-shows the 2-month appearance. So then there needs to be more violence. For the next 2 years, the battle and the violence get so bad, the Secretary of War sends ammunition not just to soldiers, but to citizens to the territory.
Jeez. Yeah, you're going out there, you're going to need this.
Here is your cache of weapons. Here's a Red Dead 2 redemption amount worth of ammunition. Good luck with those Apaches. They're going to kill you. Now, it needs to be said, there's a lot more going on than Cochise and the Chiricahuas. A lot of these raids are from Victorio and Geronimo, and it's not just Cochise, but Cochise is the name that everyone is focused on. So with that celebrity, he obviously gets that pushed on. The violence continues until August 1870, when Cochise, and tell me if you've heard this before, wants to talk peace.
Guys. This time I'm serious.
No, but seriously. And this one was also kind of out of the blue because the officer in charge also doesn't know what to do. He doesn't know if he should accept him. He doesn't know if he should attack or what he should do. The officer is just kind of winging it, but he does decide to let Cochise come in. And he does something even smarter, because he also allows Cochise to come and go as he pleases. Why no one has done this before, I think you can understand. But when he just willingly walks up and walks out, you need to build some trust, because you need a lot more than Tom Jeffords, who, again, those two still have a pretty good a pretty good friendship going off. Everyone else, Cochise doesn't trust. So this officer letting him come and go freely, brilliant. Gold star for him. However, it did lead to a lot of bad press, we will say, because it's not like the raids are completely stopped, and it's not like the Apache or the Chiricahuas have stopped raiding as well. So when Cochise is allowed and they actually set up a peace conference, Cochise is the first one to rise and say, quote, "I want to talk first. I have come to hear that you want to talk. If the government talks straight, I want a good peace. My people hide in the mountains and arroyos to keep out of the way. I want the truth told. A man is only has one mouth, and if he won't tell the truth, he is to put that one out of the way." Cochise then again pledges that his people will not attack during the negotiation. However, he just can't control the other bands. But he would go back up into the mountains and to see if he could stop any of the raids from happening. Which kind of tells you either A, Cochise is lying, or he doesn't have all that much control over the situation anymore. So again, with Cochise able to walk back and forth, he goes back up into the mountains, has talks with his people, and then comes back down. Now, the peace talks do have a stall when the reservationist system is brought up. He said that the Apaches were like the coyotes and they didn't want to be panned up onto a reservation. At the end of these talks, Cochise then goes back up to the mountains, and with no peace treaty in place, the Americans just wait. and then they wait. And then they realize that maybe a ranch has just been burned down to the ground.
He did it again.
He did it to us again. Son of a... This is like Tom and Jerry, but with more murder.
Did
When
he
they're
really
eight-
do that with the ranch, though?
Oh yeah, I don't whether it was the Chiricahua or not. You don't know, but there was definitely raids still continuing, and Cochise stopped showing back up. The
No.
reservations were brought up.
Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, fool me 3 times. I'm just an idiot.
I mean, we're at 5th, 6th, 7th. I mean, we've talked about at least 4 failed peace negotiations with this man in like 5 years. It's becoming just an ongoing joke at this point. Now, at this point, someone at their desk is wringing a sheet of paper super hard and tearing out their hair, because every time they think they have Cochise, he goes up into the mountains and then magically a ranch is burned. What a coincidence. So now leadership needs to change. So they send in someone we have talked about very briefly before, George Crook. Do you remember George Crook?
I remember the name. I can't remember who he is.
He was in Custer's episode. He was at the Battle of the Rosebud, which was before the Battle of Little Bighorn. Again, I could also say it's a drinking game at this point. George Crook could also get his own episode. We'll see if he does or not, because I think he's going to get covered completely in everyone else's episode. But George Crook wasn't necessarily against native rights. Like, he didn't necessarily believe they were all evil, which is quite rare. He does believe in a carrot and stick mentality, to where if you do what I want you to, I will treat you with proper respect. However, if you leave the reservation or do something I don't want you to do, I will hunt you down and kill you without mercy.
Please do what I ask and we're fine, but I will hunt you down.
Like a sir. I will hunt you down like a sir. Crook comes in and he isn't wasting any time. Around February 1870, he makes a proclamation that by February 16th, all Apaches need to be on the reservation or else. I should also mention he made this proclamation on February 7th, which gives them how many days?
9.
9.
9?
9 whole days to get on the reservation or else. Now, you might think, why is Crook so confident that if they don't show up, he's going to be able to find them? Well, the answer is simple. Other than Tom Jeffords, the Americans haven't had good luck finding the Apache, because for whatever reason, nobody believed that they should be hiring the Apache to hunt Apache. George Crook has the remarkable idea to just hire them and they will help you find them. And they do. What a concept.
So what, were there some Apache that were just like solo?
No, they were on the reservation already.
Oh, duh. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, they had a perfectly good Chiricahua or a perfectly good Apache just sitting there, and didn't do anything about it.
Hey, you want to make a couple bucks? Okay.
Yeah. So now with George Crook hot on his tail, Cochise, again, has been fighting for over a decade, has 60 warriors left.
Oh my god, that's so small. That's tiny.
And they now have to start resorting to killing their horses for food.
They've been reduced to nothing.
So it's time to talk peace for the 5th time this episode. But this time, and I promise you, Matt, I'm looking at your eye. I promise you, it's for realsies this time. It's gonna happen, right? It's happening right now.
I hope so.
With the help of Tom Jeffords, they finally catch Cochise on September 28th, 1872, when Cochise finally steps foot on the agency. Now the debate is now going to start. They have him like Cochise is no longer going to run. I'm not kidding you anymore. Like it's 1870. The man is over 60. I don't want to give too much away, but he ain't living for too much longer. Now the debate is where the Apache are going to stay. So now that Cochise is talking, Cochise really wants to stay at Canada Alamosa, which is where Apache Pass has been, or it is where Apache Pass is. So Canada Alamosa is the big area that he would like to stay. However, the problem isn't necessarily with that. It's that there is an Indian agent named Croyler, who is the most typical bureaucrat ever. Croyler argues that the improvement of Apache Pass, again, the place the Apache have been staying for decades, well, that it would simply be too expensive to fix. So why not just move the Apache upstate? Well, in a place that is called Tularosa Valley. Do you want to know what respected historian Robert Utley has described the Tularosa Valley as?
Please tell me.
High, cold, sterile, and unhealthy.
Sounds like for a 5-star resort.
And Croyler's like, yeah, that would be better. It would be less expensive to upkeep, and we already have people there. So if you don't go, we're just not going to hand you the rations we just promised you. Oh, I'm sorry, you're eating your horses now. Wouldn't it be too bad if we took those rations away? Just as it looks like there's going to be another set of violence, President Grant, again, the president of the United States, says the Apaches can just stay at Canada Alamosa. For God's sake, Croyler, shut the F up. Do you not understand what these people can do? Well, at least they can stay for the time being, but they're going to be removed. In fact, they're going to be removed around April 1872 is the date. They don't know where yet, but they're going to be moved. They're not just going to be able to stay at Apache Pass. Next in the negotiation, we need to enter. Oh, Jesus Christ, there's so many people in this episode. We need to enter one final person, and his name is Oliver Otis Howard. Howard is a Civil War veteran and well-respected brigadier general who lost his arm during a campaign. He's also a very pious, very moral person, but he also wants to negotiate. So in this cameo that Oliver Otis Howard is going to have, he's talking with Cochise, who again has not signed any document and made an agreement with the Americans. Howard and Cochise do the impossible, and they find a place that is suitable for both.
Dun, 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 dun.
Now, it's not Apache Pass, but it's Apache Pass adjacent. Now, part of the issue is it's like, I don't know, 5 feet from Mexico.
Does some of it go into Mexico?
It seems like it, or it may as well have, because as soon as the Apache move in to this new reservation, this small agency, which by the way is headed up by Tom Jeffords, like they're really just like kissing Cochise's butt here because Jeffords is the agent. It's right by Mexico. It's right by Apache Pass. Well, wouldn't you know it that the raids may have started happening in Mexico again? And Cochise doesn't even deny it. When he is approached by it, he simply just said something to the tune of, I made peace with the Americans. I didn't make peace with the Mexicans.
So what do they say?
Oh, the Mexicans are angry, but they're not the only ones that are angry. Howard has his agreement, and they're going there, but Crook is furious. Well, he's angry because Howard is letting the natives leave at will, which is making Crook look weak. Because again, Crook is the strong, I will give you the carrot or the stick. If you do what I say, I will respect
Right.
you. If you don't do what I say, I will hit you with an iron hammer. For them just to leave and raid at Please makes him look weak, and it's also really making the Mexicans look. It's really making them angry. So a brooding international incident is starting to happen. Just as all of this is coming to a head, it's becoming between 1873 and 1874. All 1873 is a pissing contest between Crook and Howard. But Crook has one card to play up his sleeve. Nothing between Howard and Cochise was written down. Now, they're already on the agency, by the way. But Crook has a card that we have nothing official. Let's move them.
No.
And now it's 1874, and Cochise is on his deathbed.
Son of a gun.
Now, I'm not kidding you. In the middle of this very important should I stay, are we staying, are we going, Cochise is dying. An official named Dudley actually tries to talk to Cochise while he is laying there. And Cochise is so sick, he says he is going to default his answer to his oldest son named Taza. Now, we haven't talked about Taza a lot, but he is the one Cochise has been grooming to take over. But if it's up to Cochise, he lets Dudley know that he would like to stay here. When Dudley goes back to headquarters, he may or not have talked to Taza at all, and he may have put in his papers that, yeah, I think the Chiricahua are ready to move.
Oh, no.
As it turns into June 1874, the old warrior has nothing left, and he actually asked to see his old friend, Tom Jeffords. And they have a nice little exchange between each other. When Jeffords enters his tent and they start up a conversation, Cochise asks Jeffords, "Do you think you will ever see me again?" Jeffords said, "No, I do not think I will. I think tomorrow night you will be dead." Cochise replied, "Yes, I think so too. About 10 o'clock tomorrow morning. Do you think we will ever meet again?" Jeffords then said, "I don't know. What is your opinion on it?" Cochise, I have been thinking a good deal of it while I have been sick here. I believe we will. Good friends will meet again. Up there, as he pointed towards the sky. And that next morning, Cochise did die, likely of stomach type cancer or dyspepsia. And that is Cochise.
What happens? So do the Apaches move then?
That is for Geronimo's episode.
Geronimo!
Yeah. Are you sad to see the old man go?
God, he lived a long life. How old was he? Do you know? 70s?
Yeah, in his 60s, 70s.
Late 60s,
Wasn't that
early
old.
70s? Yeah.
A lot of fighting, though. An ungodly amount of fighting. Okay, now we will rank him.
Rank.
Wanna make that stick, aren't you?
What?
Make that stick, aren't you? First round, called Are You Satisfied? This is our biography round. We will be handing out negative 10 points apiece to positive 10 points apiece, depending on how well we liked this story. Matt, it's a long story. It was a violent story. How well did you like it?
I liked it. I thought it was good. I liked it. I can't remember who else it was, but I liked it more for the story, not necessarily the dude.
Right?
Even though Cochise actually was pretty interesting. I mean, how he must have came in with the puppy dog look those 4 or 5 times of talking about peace. Like, I swear, I'm wondering the whole time you were talking, I'm wondering if it was, I was wondering if it was, did he actually want peace, but just didn't know or didn't want to show the humility of like giving up? So he like backed out last second. I mean, obviously they raided stuff and people died and whatnot, but Only one man knows, I guess.
I don't know. He is a mystery. I do. This is high praise coming. So, well, for me, my praise doesn't matter. But in the context of who I highly regard, he reminds me the most of Tecumseh than anyone we've covered.
I think on the other side, though,
I do too. I was
I
going to
think he
bring that up.
was. If Tecumseh was a Jedi, he is definitely a Sith.
I was about to say there is way too much murder for us to give positive points here. I don't
Well,
think we can do positive.
I'm curious. I'm always gonna wonder too about Felix. Like if that dude would have just let him go, would the bloodshed have been a lot of the bloodshed been avoided?
Well, we're likely going to have are we going to have an episode on him? He ends up changing his name to Mickey Free. He ends
Mickey
up
Free.
becoming an Apache scout, ends up living with the Apaches for a while, then becomes part of the military, and it's a really big, really good story. I don't know how much new is going to be covered on his episode, but he might get one. He probably will get one. So we can cover Mickey Free later. But yes, I don't know. That was kind of Cochise's flashpoint. Now he probably would have just died a warrior's death, I would think. Probably in Mexico. Who knows? Right. Who knows what that timeline looks like without the Bascom Affair? But there is a very definite point in his life where he turns on the Americans.
Where I am taking points away, though, is because he didn't enter the story till halfway through. Right?
Yeah.
So overall, though, I thought it was pretty interesting and kind of a change of pace. We were kind of staying in the, the plains for a long time and like the Midwest and I mean, we did go to the Alamo, but that's Texas and that's basically a whole other country. Let's be real.
The
worst. Shout out to our Texas listeners.
Hi, Roberto.
So overall, I'm gonna grade -6.5.
-6. You gave that same score to Doc Holliday.
Really?
You did.
I wasn't a big fan of Doc Holliday, if I remember correctly.
I mean, you weren't thrilled.
I liked him, but I just wasn't thrilled. Yeah.
Yeah. I do like Cochise. I do. Not positive. I can't score again. Too much murder to go positive. I'm gonna go slightly higher than that or lower. I'm gonna go -7 because there's a lot we don't know. But it's also that mystery kind of works for him because he doesn't have his own portrait. He doesn't like the Apache. By tradition, don't talk about death or people who have died, which makes it incredibly frustrating to like talk about these people, but that's fine. We got through it. You can definitely tell when the American sources started chipping in because as soon as the Bascom Affair starts, then it's well documented what Cochise is doing. Not all the time, but there's definitely something there. Where episode 1, it was like, I don't know, maybe his name was Cheese for a while and he was tracked that way.
Well, it is cool too that they were never they couldn't find him for the longest. Like until who knows, he probably wanted to be found.
He was actually like raising a flag. Do you think he had that Harry Potter invisibility cloak?
Yeah, or he set a spell to just put a whole freaking mirror. They had a blanket just over the entire camp.
His best friend.
It is crazy too that it went from at one point when they had the high ground. You said it was like 200.
Yeah, 200 Apache.
All the way down to 60.
Well, that was a combined force too, and you got to think like you had warriors come of age and then die.
Yeah.
Also, back to the Harry Potter point, Cochise's best friend was a redheaded person. Harry Potter.
Did he still have his wife when he died?
I don't know.
How much was said about her after the incident?
Well, he had multiple wives too.
Right.
So
I did know that. Yeah, I did know that.
I think so, because if I'm remembering correctly, he ends up being buried. Jeffords is the only like white person to witness his burial and they on purpose lost it on time. Lost it. They hit it. So nobody knows where he's buried.
Dang. Let's ask Jeffords.
Jimmy, we need you, Jimmy. Okay, next round. Be sure you are right, then go ahead. This is our morality round where we're going to be handing out, we're going to be handing out negative points here. Or put to positive points if Matt's feeling like hot take Jackson again.
He didn't.
It's a lot of murder. Again, I keep pounding on that point.
Yeah, but that was part of their survival. They needed the rating to survive.
Here's what I will say. Is I've thought about this one a lot because I wrote this episode probably back in August. I will not stand behind when your culture is about just taking and killing. I'm not going to stand behind that. So I'm not going to give them token points because it's a culture thing.
I'm going to say -7.5.
Okay.
What were you going to say before?
I will point out he did have his own vendetta. So whether we want to keep that into account,
Vendettas never ever pan out. You always turn into the bad guy.
Wait until Wyatt Earp. We'll get there. But he then also realizes that he can't fight forever, and he does try working out a peace in the last 4 years of his life. If that means that there's my argument.
How many times though? How many times?
With that said, I'm going -8. -15.5. Next round, to hell with the consequences. We're going to be handing out -10 points to +10 points apiece, depending on if we think he was more crazy or if he was clever. He's not crazy.
I don't think he's that clever though. He did a couple clever things.
He hid from the Americans and the Mexicans for most of his life.
I'm going to give him. This is going to be interesting because this is going to be a positive round.
This is going to destroy his score. I agree.
I'm going to say, because I think he was clever.
I do too.
So I'm going to go ahead and give him
brutal, but clever.
5.5. You're going to go higher, aren't you? I just have a feeling you think he was more clever.
Well, we just don't know. I don't think you gave a bad score. I was actually going to go 5.
So the thing is, because I mean, he did escape the camp. I mean, he did have the brains enough to get a couple prisoners with him or take a couple hostages himself as bargaining chips.
That is a good point. He didn't just recklessly, when his family was taken, he didn't just recklessly kill everyone that moment. He did that after his cousins were killed. Then he just took Arizona. That, by the way, underrated point. And I might go back and change my score. He controlled Arizona for a year.
Right.
Which we haven't seen since Red Cloud.
But I feel like he lost it quickly.
I mean, he did. And it was convenient timing because the Americans had the Civil War.
And I feel like he didn't, because there were other bands, like you said, and he wasn't able to band them all together to try and take over permanently.
Right. Nope, that did not happen. But here's the thing. So when people talk about, I know people don't care about sports necessarily on a history podcast, but when the 2020 seasons happened, and baseball, they usually have a 162 game season and they had a 60 game season. And the Dodgers won the World Series, and everyone thinks they should have an asterisk because it wasn't a real World Series. Everyone played by the same set of rules. The Apache still took over the area. That you can't take away from them, regardless of the circumstances. It still happened.
Yeah.
So that's my counterpoint. So I'm gonna go back. Can I cheat? I'm gonna go back. I'm gonna go -8 for that point because he controlled an entire state, territory, for a while.
I'll allow it.
And I think that's impressive. For this round, though, I'm going to give him a 5. To hell with the negative, to the consequences. I don't think he was crazy at all. That is actually going to destroy his score, though, overall. But that's all right. +10.5. Now we're going to lock in Cochise's score, which is sitting at a negative 19.5, which means he's negative, which means we're going to continue to subtract points from his score from here on out. Our next round is called Draw. If we get into a duel with Cochise, how screwed are we on a scale of 0 to 10?
I don't know. Like, we didn't really go over his.
Oh, he was violent. Let's not.
Yeah, well, no, I know we went over that. Like, he was violent, but we didn't go over really necessarily his. Shoot, I would just run down a hill. You know what I'm saying?
I don't think that would help. We didn't go into like.
I'm not that scared.
So let's change it this way, because I think we even talked about in Sitting Bull's episode. If we are in a fight with Cochise, I think that's what our standard should be, because we're dead. It's not even a maiming.
Are we though?
They tied a child to a wagon wheel after, and then there's this. I don't know if I covered it. There's like literal child mutilation that I did not cover.
Right.
So whatever happens is brutal. So I think we are in trouble, because he will kill you without thinking about it, because he's done it before. So I will give my score, because I think I am more intimidated by him than most. So I am going to go -7.
I'm going to do -5.
Explain your score.
I'm scared.
Oh, I think that's a mistake.
Dude, I think it's okay. So I went in the middle because I think it's 50-50.
If you were a rancher in 1860s Arizona,
he had people. It's not like he just showed up. He had backup.
I'm just saying. I think
they couldn't even take out when they had the advantage.
All right. Send your hate mail to
Eric. Action. I am trained. Okay.
I believe you. All right. -12 for Draw. Next round is Legacy. How well known is he? We're going to be taking points away from 0 to -10, depending on how well known we think he is. He's not very well known, is he? There's a county named after him.
Right. But I think he's, if we're doing like a tier list, he's probably like B or C, I would say.
I'm surprised you went that high.
Oh, you think lower?
I struggle. I knew the name and I knew he was Apache. That was it.
Oh, see, I didn't even. Now that you just said that, I didn't even know he was Apache. So, and if you said, "Tell me Cochise, tell me where he's located," I probably would have been like Midwest.
I do think he's in the Bass Reeves range. Now that hurts me, because I think Bass Reeves should be much more well known than he is. But
I did like Bass Reeves. Yeah, so maybe C tier.
Yeah. So what's a C tier to you in a number?
3.
I'm going to go slightly higher and do 4.
Okay. Yeah. I think that range is probably right.
Yeah. I mean, the only time you really hear about Cochise County, and I feel like you only hear that if you're talking about Tombstone, because that's obviously the county.
Right. And it's not like, right.
So, I mean, I would be surprised if you polled 100 Americans, would 10 of them know who he is?
Right.
I mean, it's a shame, because I mean, he's impressive, but I just don't think he's well known. Next round, death bonus. We're going to be handing out bonus points between 0 and 2 if you think he had a cool death story. He had an inconvenient death.
I'm going to give, I was thinking about this during the episode. I'm going to give him 0.5, not because of how he died, but because of how long he lived and how often, I mean, his father-in-law walked in a camp and they accidentally said a bad word.
Gotta beep yourself.
Okay, so he came in. So he walked in the camp and they tortured him and killed him. He was able to just come and go. They were so confused.
Yeah.
And then he was able to just walk out.
Yeah.
So that's why I said 0.5, because of how like
he should have died multiple times. Yeah. Fair. I was thinking 0.5 for a different reason, because after Geronimo's episode, it's going to make sense. But we are at like the climax of where the Apache should live. And the most influential chief that wants peace is now dead. That is going to have ripple effects for Geronimo's episode, who's basically just going to pick up the Cochise baton and just run with it. So I'm also going to give him 0.5, but for slightly different reasons. I don't disagree with your reasons, though. I think they're sound. That one. Next round, counting coup, his confirmed-ish kills.
Let me take a guess.
I don't even have a number.
Oh,
I
I would
mean-
assume, well,
Pure speculation.
if I had to guess, I'd say somewhere in the 50s.
I don't even know where to, like,
Well,
I
think
couldn't
about it.
even
You
throw out
said
the
they
number.
rated for like a solid 2 years.
Well, I think it's not even just 2 years, it's his entire life, but I wonder if we throw out a Custer scenario. So we gave Custer all of the deaths at the Battle of the Washita. Do we give him all of the deaths in 1861 for civilians, which was over 100?
No, I say we do that divided by 3.
So you want 30.
Yeah.
30 divided by, okay, so that's going to end up giving him 3 points.
Yeah.
I'm going to,
Because he didn't do all the killing.
he went on so many raids, and also we're talking when he was a young man and healthy. I'm sure he did a lot of murder there.
Maybe half. Maybe half.
What do you mean half?
Like 50.
I was about to say, I don't think 50 is out of the realm of possibility. And if we want to
Hey,
attack,
we make the rules here and we're saying 50.
okay, so we're gonna say 50 with an asterisk. But I can honestly, anyone who wants to debate that, I'm happy to hear like why you disagree, because I honestly don't even know where to start with it. Because there's zero documentation. It's not like the Apache were like, I killed this many people on this state and this state and this state. Yeah, it's very tough. So I think giving him 50, I think is reasonable, which by the way is about the same as like the Donner Party dying. Like it's around that ballpark.
The entire party.
The entire party. So he killed the Donners. -5, which brings him to a total score of -44.5, which is a bit disappointing, but he should have had a swing of 20 points because we gave him positive 10 points for not being crazy. So that would have been a swing of 20 points. That would have brought him up to like a 40, 65-ish, but he's in the 40s. So
Now, draft time.
what are we doing?
Eric's going to flip a coin. As you know, heads, tails, I call it. Winner gets to decide if they're on their team or not. Eric, remind me, we're not more than 2 off, right?
No, we're even.
Yes, we're even. So that means whoever wins gets to decide. Loser has to cry themselves to sleep tonight. Heads. Back it up. Oh, it's tails. It's tails.
Yeah. Boy, I'm going to draft him, but that means I can go 2 for 2 on Apaches because Geronimo will be worth drafting.
Yep. Now, remember as well, I didn't mention it, but if Eric or I go more than 2 figures up on the other, the next one automatically goes to the other person.
True. He's actually my second negative score on my team.
Yeah, I know. I got all the negatives.
Yeah, you do. Do you want to know my other negative person?
Is it Red Cloud?
John Wesley Hardin.
The biggest one, right?
The baddest baddie. So those are my only two negative scores. Negative 89.5 for John Wesley Harden, and then negative 44.5 for Cochise. But I think
And that brings your count up to, correct me if I'm wrong, 13.
13. So yeah. And I finally pulled ahead. Also, I feel like, all right, I don't want to say Cochise is a dark horse, but he is better than his score implies.
I don't think so.
I think
he's right where he needs to be.
I think he is worth having on a team. I don't think he's going to win.
I think he's worth having on a team, but he won't even make it to the round of 24. Or wait, there's only 40, so he won't make it to the round of 10.
That's fine, because it's not how far he goes. It's who he takes out on your team. And maybe
he's going to take out a C-lister.
Maybe we're impressed by him, man. Who knows? Anyway, I have Cochise. I'm feeling good about it. Have high hopes to get Geronimo. Probably also going to be a two-parter for everyone. Sorry about that. There's a lot going on here, and it's very hard to explain in just one episode. I mean, honestly, this was the background. This is the background of Geronimo. We've just went from 1800 and now we're at 1874, and Geronimo is just, like I said, so we've just done a lot of background. We don't need to go over, Apache, the Battle of Apache Pass again. We don't need to go over. Now we just need to pick up at negotiations are here, and yeah, it's going to be fun. There's a lot. If you thought you were raised before, Geronimo, he really likes himself a raid as well.
Oh, more bloodshed is a coming.
Yes, it is. So with that,
remember, if you like what you heard today, go ahead and like and subscribe. Leave us a comment on whatever podcast service you are listening on. We really appreciate it. And you can always check out our website, ranking76.wordpress.com, where you will find a link to all of our social media, our email. You can see the scorecards. You can check out the other episodes you may have missed. We really appreciate it.
I'm Eric.
And I'm Matt. Bye.